All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about the world's two largest democracies, the United States and India. Now, this relationship is absolutely critical for the 21st century. But here's the thing. It's also packed with contradictions. It swings between this really close partnership and, at the same time, a pretty fierce rivalry. So how can two countries be both? Let's decode it.
For years, the story seemed pretty simple. The US and India, they were often called natural allies. They make sense, right? They shared democratic values. They have a common goal of a free and open Indo-Pacific, which is really a counterbalance to China's growing influence. On paper, it looks like a perfect match. But that's only half the story.
Because this is the other half. While all the talk is about partnership, the reality in 2025 is a full-blown tariff war. And we're not talking about a minor disagreement here. This is a major economic conflict, and it threatens to unravel decades of trust that was so painstakingly built. So, what is really going on? To really understand this puzzle, first we have to look at the powerful strategic alliance that's supposed to be the bedrock of the whole relationship. And this isn't just diplomatic talk, it's deep, practical cooperation. And look, this partnership, it's not just talk. It's incredibly tangible. Through things like ICET, that's the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technology, both countries are co-developing everything from jet engines to semiconductors. They're even planning joint human space flights. This is the kind of deep collaboration you only see between really, really close partners. And it's all held together by this massive number, $200 billion in annual trade. This economic interdependence is a huge reason why both countries see each other as indispensable. It's a synergy that's been growing for years, which of course brings us back to the conflict.
But on the complete flip side of all that cooperation, you have this serious economic standoff. This is where that natural allies story starts to fray, and the tough realities of national interest really take over.
I mean, just look at how quickly things escalated in 2025. It starts with a failed summit in February, and by August, boom, the U.S. had slapped tariffs of over 50% on major Indian exports. This wasn't a slow burn. It was a rapid descent into economic hostility that left a lot of people in both countries just scratching their heads. And the real-world pain from this is immense. We're not talking about abstract numbers on a spreadsheet. India's huge gems and jewelry sector is projected to lose billions. Textile orders are dropping off a cliff. Auto parts are facing crippling duties. This has a direct and really painful impact on jobs and businesses. So, the big question is why? Why target a strategic partner like this? Well, according to U.S. officials, it boils down to a mix of three key frustrations. First, India's continued and growing purchase of Russian oil. Second, a persistent trade surplus that the U.S. sees as unfair. And third, India's active participation in groups like BRICS+, which, include U.S. rivals like Russia and China. And this quote from Tanvi Madan at the Brookings Institution, it just hits the nail on the head. It says, "The only constant is volatility, and U.S.-India ties, too. The relationship has always had its ups and downs, but this moment is particularly volatile, and that makes it incredibly difficult to manage these really deep-seated differences." So how does India do it? How does it reconcile being a close U.S. partner while also buying Russian oil and working with China? The answer, it turns out, lies in its grand strategy for a world where no single country calls all the shots anymore. At the very heart of this strategy is this concept called Vishwamitra. It basically translates to a friend of the world or a friend of everybody. What it means is that India is consciously choosing not to be locked into any single camp. Instead, it aims to maintain its strategic autonomy, engaging with all the major powers to advance its own national interests. And you can see this balancing act happening in real time. It's fascinating. On one side, India is a core member of the Quad security dialogue with the U.S. and its allies. But on the other side, it's a leading voice in groups like the expanded BRICS+ and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, working right alongside Russia and China. It's a very delicate and very deliberate strategy. Which brings us to the fundamental question about India's entire approach. Is this a brilliant exercise in independence that maximizes its options, or is it an incredibly risky tightrope walk that could end up alienating everyone? So let's zoom out for a second. What does this complicated, indispensable rivalry actually tell us about the future of global power? Well, if you look at the numbers, the U.S. is still the world's undisputed superpower by a huge margin. The economy, the military, it's unmatched. But And this is a huge but. The crucial detail here is India's trajectory. As the world's fastest growing major economy, its rise is rapidly, and I mean rapidly, changing the global equation. And of course, none of this is happening in a vacuum. As this analysis points out, India's rise is happening right alongside China's. This creates this incredibly complex dynamic where countries like India and Japan are trying to forge an inclusive, multipolar Asia, not one dominated by single power. They see the U.S. as a key part of that balance, for sure, but not the only part. And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? As global power continues to shift, will the relationship between the world's two largest democracies be defined by their indispensable partnership or by their inescapable rivalry? How Washington and New Delhi manage that tension is going to define so much of the 21st century.